Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Peter here, and it's time for episode 25 of the PDG Advertising Podcast. Welcome. So it's been 2 days since we spoke. No podcast yesterday. Yesterday was, it's been a really big couple of days for PDG Advertising. Couple of very enjoyable days, and you might hear my sheets ruffling in the background. That is because I've taken down a whole bunch of stuff to go through with you on the podcast. And it starts off with a morning event on Thursday. So Thursday was a packed out day. I knew it was going to be packed out from the start. I've kicked it now, but for the past 7 days, I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but I've been doing a intermittent fasting thing where you eat for 8 hours in a day consecutively. You don't eat consecutively for 8 hours, but you're allowed to eat. That's your window for eating. So mine is from 12 o'clock noon until 8 p.m. And then you fast right up again until the next noon time. So basically it's like 16 hours fasting per day and 8 hours eating. And I don't know, it seemed kind of difficult, but whenever you're in it for the first couple of days, you're like, oh, this is kind of easy. They say you can eat anything, but you can't really. If your goal is like mine to lose some weight, then you can eat your calorie amount, your daily advised calorie amount within that 8 hours. And you can then they do say you can eat more fats and more proteins, but try to lay off the carbs. But they say it's still okay if you're balanced and you have like 30% carbs, 30% fats, and 30% proteins. So that's something I had been doing right up to the start of this Thursday and was continued into Thursday. But on Wednesday, I I started my fast early at about 6 p.m. And I had probably said it on the day before on this podcast, but I had agreed to go to an event with View Digital, Una Murphy and Brian, who put on this wonderful event, and I'd said I would go to it. So it was at 9:30. So wake up as always quite early, get ready to prep up some stuff for the day, and then get ready to head over to the University of Ulster in York Street in Belfast. And I tell you what, that place is awesome. So I got over there for 9:30, and I went into the room, and this was a bit different. This day was a bit different because this was coming up on 16 hours fasting whenever I walked into the room at about 9:30, 9:15. And then it was really intense because I knew that I would have about 3 hours before I could have anything to eat. And halfway through, just before my fast finished, they served like tea and coffee and some beautiful tray bakes. And goodness, I just wanted to eat the whole lot of them, but I didn't, and I stuck with it. But I tell you what, whenever I finished, I'll go into what the event was about, but whenever I finished that fast at noon and then the event went on to 1, that was about 20 hours of not eating anything. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And I had a blinding headache and been drinking lots of water and everything, but I knew it was pure food. It was pure food that was missing from my world, and I love eating. So that was bad. But just another side note on this, the 24-hour fasting, it's pretty awesome. It's a hard one to get your head around. But within 2 days, I could feel a lot different. I could feel, less sluggish, way more energy. I don't know if listening to your body is a thing, and I've never really understood that term, but my body was telling me that this is good, and it's still telling me that after doing it for a week. There's been a couple of rough points, mostly in the morning, just before the fast is about to end. I guess that's when it would happen. I'm kind of skeptical about it because I've heard about these crash diets, but I tell you what, this seems to be a reasonably good thing. And maybe, who knows, if it goes really well, I'll let you guys know about it again. But anyway, that was a start to my Thursday. And the reason why I was going into York Street was to go to this wonderful event on participatory journalism by View Digital. For those of you who don't know, View Digital is a online magazine which also has a print version of its magazine. And it's all about social issues and things that are affecting our society today. It could be homelessness, it could be drug use, it could be equality issues, could be any of that stuff. And if you know me, you probably know that I can get quite passionate and quite annoyed about things when it comes to injustice and stuff like that. So this really strikes a chord with me, and I've always enjoyed interacting with Una, one of the co-runners of this magazine. So I was invited to go along to it, and I don't know, I just wanted to get myself about there a little bit more. And this was the event for me, for sure. It was really nice to go to it. It was very welcoming, and it was really cool. When it started off, there was about 15, 20 people there. It's quite intimate, but it was packed for the size of the room it was, which was good. And the first speaker started speaking, and Brian, he introduced the paper and everything. I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know the whole story. And it was a really nice story to hear how the paper came about. And then the first speaker got up. He's a guy called Barry, guy here from Northern Ireland, or Ireland, whatever your persuasion is. To me, it doesn't matter. Well, I don't think to most people it matters so much, but to be respectful here in Belfast for our international listeners, as we know that there are quite a few now. Some people in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, would class themselves as Irish. Some people class themselves as Northern Irish, and some people class themselves as British. And then some people like me, I have a British passport. I would consider myself both Irish and Northern Irish. And I guess I would consider myself British as well, or I wouldn't have a British passport. So I'm kind of across that whole spectrum, and don't feel that it's so important. But anyway, this guy Barry got up to speak. He was talking about this stuff, and I didn't really grasp the idea of the event before I went to it. But it was all about. It seemed to be about journalism and journalists' rights. And I didn't know anything about this. And the atmosphere was kind of electric, and it was kind of tense and anxious and welcoming at the same time, which was interesting. And it was really nice to sort of sit back and absorb that. So that was really cool. It's also nice to interact with the people around me as well. Whenever you sit in the office and, we don't interact with new people, I think that's a shame. And I think more things like that would be very healthy for PDG advertising. But this guy Barry talked about, goodness me, we were talking about a court case that he's involved in and police raiding his house and all sorts. And I think the general story goes that he's a journalist, and he has been accused of some sort of theft, or been involved or been accused of being involved in some sort of theft of documents from somewhere, I don't know where, police or something like that. And it's not the case. And the police were very heavy-handed with him and with his people and stuff. And he was saying that this is a thing that is happening now in journalism, where, there's a freedom of speech thing where journalists abide by codes of conduct, but it's not taken into account by the police. And that seemed to be the general gist. But it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And that was really, really interesting. I met a friend there, Kerry, and she she was really nice. We talked, but I told her, this is really exciting because I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen all these press conferences of Trump and of Theresa May and of our politicians here. And you see a press room, we've got all these press people, and they're all leaned in and they're all interested, and they've got their pens in their mouths, and they're trying to get a point across. And whenever they're selected to speak, they introduce themselves as Jim Johnson from the Daily Herald or something like that. And this happened whenever they were asking questions at the end of this guy. And I just thought, goodness me, I'm in a room full of journalists. Fair enough, this isn't a press conference, but this must be sort of a taste, just a tiny taste of what it might feel like to be in one. And wow, was that cool. That just felt electric for me. And then Carrie laughed, and she said that was she laughed at me because I think the expression is wet behind the ears of these things. Maybe these guys have all been in millions of these, and it's just their day to day. But it was so nice to put a toe into that arena. I then went, I think thank you to Una and to Brian for putting on that event. It was very nice, a very good event, a very strong event. And the next speaker, Jenny, connected with her on Twitter, spoke excellently and really amazing content. I enjoyed what she spoke about, and I enjoyed Barry's talk. I probably have a little bit of I came away with a little bit of a insight, I think, into old school journalism, and maybe a little bit of prejudiceness against new age, how communication works. That was really fascinating to me. The whole point of PDG advertising is to increase communication and increase levels of communication between people. And I was faced with a kind of elitism among journalism and journalists, among the crowd and among the speakers, where there's this kind of shock that social media exists. And I got the feeling that it was a bit surprising to me that journalists were kind of complaining about how people are putting across information on the internet without it being verified and, fact checked and everything. And kind of putting like equivalence of what they do and what other people do, and complaining about it getting traction whenever, stuff that they do that is well researched and under the fundamentals of journalism, is really legitimate, whereas other sources, like some guy tweeting on his phone who doesn't really know anything, or trolls and things like that. But I got a sense of maybe a lack of being able to navigate that. I got a sense of, a lack of ability to navigate that, a lack of knowing how to navigate that, and a little bit of confusion as to how to navigate that. And I wonder if that's the same everywhere. I wasn't expecting it to even be mentioned that social media is disrupting this, or social media is disrupting this industry, or this exists now, this is how people talk now. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting journalists to be on the leading edge of, this is what's happening now, this is how we manage it, and this is how we are managing it. But I felt that the general feeling in the room was kind of like where a huge meteor had just hit this industry, and everybody was scrambling around trying to figure out how to deal with it, and how to, not even how to use it, just in shock about what it was and where it was coming from. So I wonder if that's true. I wonder if my perception of that is correct, or whether it's wrong, and it could well be wrong. And that's something that I'd love to explore a little bit more. In journalism, has social media been a force for good, or has it been a force for bad? And I get the feeling that because I'm just getting a taste of what is going on in that industry by going to that event, that probably I'm not getting the full picture. But that's the kind of sense that I got. And I learned a while ago that whenever I get a sense of something, that it's usually not a million miles away from the truth. I can trust myself on things like that. So that was really, really interesting. And there were anybody that spoke in the event was, just switched on is not even the word. Sharp and quick and articulate and passionate and fundamentally interested in social issues, I think, as well. I think that's something that was very important to the to the audience. So a wonderful event by Una, and Brian, and I really appreciated being a part of it. I had a conversation with Carrie as well. She said about having, we were talking about email marketing, and email marketing, as you know from listening to the podcast, is a really big part of what we do. And she suggested that I create a seminar on it, or a workshop or something to that effect. I think we definitely will. I think that that's something that's in our future. Carrie was asking, how did you even start working with these customers? And I said, well, we're good at cutting through the noise of other people who were vying for that business with those customers. So sending a well-placed email or a well-placed proposal or a well-placed piece of communication got us in front of those customers. And we're very straight, honest, no nonsense. This is what we'd like to do for you. Is this something you're interested in? And what was really interesting was that I said to Carrie that we did that, and then she said, well, I get lots of people saying that about email marketing and SEO for me, but I just delete them. I said, well, yeah, I mean, 9 out of 10 people will delete it, but that's where the numbers game comes in. If you get 100 people that are potentially interested, you might only get 1 or 2 that are, and if you stop after 10, you might get 10 that just aren't interested in what you have. So I think that's an interesting point of view. Carrie found it interesting, and Una found it interesting as well. So there's possibly a link up there to how we bring our message of the user journey to new audiences through little events and workshops. I don't know when that is. I think that's like 6 months away. It could be a year away. Who knows? We've got so much to do at PDG Advertising that things like that just don't, I can't see them in the horizon right now, but I think they're looming up over it. So that's an interesting way to go, and a good takeaway from that event. I suppose to backtrack a little bit of the suppose to backtrack a little bit on our journalists on top of social media. I don't know if they are or not, but what I do know that they're on top of, so on the pulse of what's going on now. I got the sense that everybody in that room was like 6 steps ahead of me in terms of what was going on behind the scenes in Northern Ireland here, in the politics of this place, in the politics of the overall island of Ireland and in the UK. I got the feeling that they were able to flow with information very quickly. Maybe that's why it surprised me so much about the technology side. Were they on top of the technology side? I don't know. I got the sense that they weren't, but I got the sense that in terms of real things and real issues, that they were way ahead of anybody that I know or anybody that I have ever talked to about. So that was interesting. Is there a matchup between the advancedness of their knowledge of local areas and even national areas and real events that are happening in real time? Whereas maybe background events like the advent of technology basically taking over a lot of our lives, is that something they're just not interested in until the point where it starts to affect them by outside influences taking on? Maybe that technology thing is just a time thing. Maybe it's a thing that needs more time to get through, and that's something that, to me, I found very, very interesting. So when I finished off in the event in the Ulster University, technically, no, I can't call myself an alumni or alumnus of that university. I did go to the Ulster University of Ulster, but here's a little bit of the PDG Peter Doak advertising backstory, where I went to university, but I screwed it up. I wasn't in any way mature enough to stick with that. I did psychology, but I didn't really go to any classes. It was in a place called Port Stewart or Port Rush up in the north coast of Northern Ireland. It's a beautiful place, and whenever you're 18 and you're thrust up there and you're not mature enough to knuckle down, and you really probably should have went out and worked for a couple of years first before you did that. It means that you definitely didn't make the most of university, and I guess you don't have to go to university, you don't have to complete it, you don't even have to finish school, I suppose, to be successful in business. But I bet it helps. I bet if you knuckle down, and I bet if you do the best that you possibly can do, unlike me who wasted it, you're bound to be in a better position whenever you end up, than someone like me who has literally had to start from scratch at the age of about 25 or so, to start to relearn, I guess, a trade, if that's what you would call this. But I don't regret that part, but I think it could have started a lot earlier, and could have been a lot less friction. There could have been a lot less friction in it. I think there's something in me that goes back to not being able to I can't be told anything. I always want to do things for myself. I have to make my own mistakes, and I have to make mistakes to learn. So that was a great time in my life, but in university. But was it as valuable as the time in my life when I've started to build a business? I don't know. So leaving the Ulster University, took a beautiful walk through Belfast, got to the car, hot-footed down the road to Lurgan to go and vote. Lurgan's my hometown, and I was just pulling in the driveway when my mum and dad's house. We all go vote together sometimes when we can, and they were just getting ready to go. Went over, voted, got back in the car. Head was thumping from this intermittent fasting, and got right back up the road to get back to the office for a very important client meeting. We had a wonderful meeting with this client. We took down, what we did was we have a process for what we do for this customer, and it's quite complex. So we took a step back and we worked it out together on Tuesday or so. Did some good prep for this meeting where we put down all the processes and mapped out everything that was supposed to happen. And it did, and we went through everything. We were able to spot, and we used a technology called draw.io, and it was able to allow us to plot out a flow chart of everything that happens for this customer so that we could suggest changes to the process, and that the customer could see that we were serious about it and we were taking care of everything, and that it would benefit the customer to make some of these changes. And the customer was able to suggest changes that we were able to make. In that meeting, I think we secured more business with the customer because we gained some trust. And I think we cemented some of our partnership with that customer. And we were really happy that we did that. I think that face-to-face time is really crucial. I've said it a few times in this podcast. I'm going to be going to different places to see customers from now on because that is very, very important. Skype does not do it. Phone calls doesn't do it. I think face-to-face is something that is important. 99% of our meetings will be done on phone calls and Skype, so it's crucial, but you don't get the same level of interaction that you do face-to-face. And I don't think we ever want to lose that. So that was a really cool day. Now, what happened was, though, it meant that the whole day was jam-packed full of stuff. The event in the morning, voting in the middle of the day in a different county, and then back up for a big meeting towards the end of the day. We'd planned to go out for drinks, but circumstances meant we couldn't afterwards. We'll do it again, hopefully, next week. But what it did mean was that I ended up working on very, very late to get stuff done that hadn't been done during the day by me. And that was okay because it meant that today was a little bit easier. And you might hear my pages ruffling because I'm looking onto today and seeing what we did. So today we finished off. Anthony did a wonderful job in finishing off a website design for us, and we talked a lot about viewing it over different medium, and the website has been designed for desktop and for mobile, but eventually this website will be viewable across all platforms. So from like the biggest, imagine even bigger than a TV, like a cinema screen or a big projector, it will be responsive enough to fit that. It will then be responsive enough to come down to TV, and then down to laptop, and then down to tablet, and then down to phone, and then down to watch. Responsive design used to mean desktop, laptop, phone, then they added in tablet. Now they're adding in watch. So there's a whole spectrum of that. And why would you have your design right for all of those? It's because people use the internet on those different mediums. Now let's be straight here. Most people, 95% of people, will be viewing what you're doing on a phone. So it's nearly the most important. But what do you start off with? Do you start off designing on a mobile? I don't think you do. I think it's more difficult to design on a desktop, and I think it puts all the elements that you need together so that it can be your base camp for stuff that you're doing. So on a desktop, like a laptop screen or on a TV screen, is probably the first place to do it. But you can't just then let that flow over into mobile. You've got to change it and make things smaller and stack things on top of each other so that it looks really well. And we take our inspiration from things like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, those mobile first, mobile only platforms that exist and look really nice and look really strong. That's where we take our inspiration from whenever we're creating on mobile. And this website, I have to say, it looks beautiful. It was created by us in a little office in Belfast, and it is a world beater. We sent it through to the customer earlier today, and they were delighted with it. And we cannot wait to get it out there to the world and make it part of our portfolio. But that's the kind of discussion that we have. You know, we have discussions around the user journey. We have discussions around whenever a person's using this, where are they using it and how are they using it. We make smart, intelligent decisions, and we're not just throwing out stuff in the hope that it works. We're thinking deeply about how people use what we create and why they use it and how we can make it better, because that makes us a better, more responsive company, adaptable to the changes that are happening in the world. And I'm not saying that we're great. I'm not saying that we're the best at it yet, but I am saying that we take our time over it, and that that we're considering the user journey in all ways that we can. So that's very important. We had a great another meeting today with one of our South African customers. Again, I've said one of our only South African customer. This is a very large customer in South Africa, and I've always enjoyed working with him. But we sometimes have the opportunity in PDG advertising, when we don't know how to do something well, that we then tell the customer that, look, we aren't expert in this yet, but we want to build that knowledge in, and we know basically how it's supposed to work and how it's supposed to happen. And in this case, it was SEO. So while we're not, focused and dedicated on it, I think it's because it takes so long, and we want to get impact quickly. But for this customer, we're getting impact really quickly. But what happened was they looked up online, and the business that they have wasn't coming up first on Google. And while that's not part of our remit, we feel a responsibility and a want for this customer to succeed in everything that they do. So we've enlisted the help of a partner company to do it. So today we had that meeting we facilitated that meeting between the customer and the partner company, kept the conversation flowing, focused on the results, and put down everything that needs to happen. The customer has now got a proposal from this supplier, and we will work it out and make it happen in the future. But it was a brilliant moment because the customer was able to articulate stuff that we don't normally articulate, and it was really interesting seeing him articulate stuff to another supplier, because it really made it clear what my place and our role is in it. And it's as a trusted advisor, and it's as a support that they really, really need in order to make happen what they want to make happen. So that was kind of cool. And then the customer said something that was awesome. He said, look, what we want to do is we want to dominate that space on Google. We want to dominate not just the search areas. We want to dominate my business. We want to dominate all of that area to make sure that we are clear and present. We are the leader in these areas in terms of the business that we do. And we want to dominate the online space for it as well. So expect there to be an Instagram post soon called Dominate the Space. And I look forward to that. So content ideas don't just have to come from the podcast when we're going on about things. Content ideas happen whenever you're doing what you're doing with your customers. Content ideas are the things that are happening in your business. And And I think that's quite cool. And I think that was quite important to say. It was really interesting too. I just got just another sense of how lucky we are with the customers that we have. They're just so good. They're focused, they're determined, they're on our wavelength. There have been customers that have come and gone that just haven't been. And that's okay. We maybe kept a hold on to them for longer than we should have. But eventually, I think you end up understanding who your customers really are, and you know what ones you want to go for and what ones you should be going for. And if we could replicate this mix of customers over a few times, then I would be very, very happy in the future to work with all of these people. And I think it's one thing liking what you do, it's another thing liking who you work with. And we definitely do. So that's excellent. I mean, it's just been a very eventful couple of days. Remember, all the while we're going through everything with our customers, you know, in terms of bigger meetings, there's, you know, 10 other side conversations going on outside, and all focused in on results for the customer and bringing them closer to their goals. So I hope that it's fun for you listening, because I know you guys are listening now. I hope that it's fun for you hearing about the journey. If there's anything more you'd like to hear about on the journey, do let me know, because I'd be very happy to go through it on this. We're not sharing everything. We're only sharing little bits of what's going on. We can only share little bits of what's going on through, you know, confidentiality and things like that. So you're only getting to see a little bit of what's going on, but I hope that it's enough to help you understand and share in the journey of what is something that is, to me, very special. And it's something that has started from nothing, literally nothing. And it started here in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and it has the potential to grow and grow and grow. So with that, I will end the 25th episode of the PDG Advertising Podcast on Friday night, nearly coming into Saturday morning now, and over this weekend I will be heading up there to that mountain called Binion in County Down in the Mourne Mountains. We're going to go up there and take on that mountain. It's a bit risky because I was watching a show about Everest and how people don't come back from that. I don't think this is on the same scale whatsoever, but it's a little bit foreboding with that. So I will be back on probably Tuesday, Monday being a bank holiday, but I'm really looking forward to it already. And again, thank you for listening. Any feedback that you have, I'd love to hear it. And I'd love to hear what you wanted to hear about from our journey, and we'd be very happy to share that. So have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.